Welcome into the Unblocked podcast, part of the Unblocked podcast network. I'm Keith, and I'm joined tonight by Brian and the wonderful Danielle Kelley. Coach is out tonight. We'll get into why because of that in just a moment. But first of all, I want to thank OsteoStrong Hillcrest for sponsoring our show. Bone health is good health, so you see Brian's got a little movement coming there, but go see them. Any injuries you may have, they'll get you straightened out. Also, please remember to follow, subscribe, like, all the fun stuff on social media. We're present on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Twitter is definitely where we're most active, so be sure to hit us up on there. And we're going to talk about Coach, because tonight Coach is out because he is getting inducted to the Davidson High School Hall of Fame. So congratulations, Coach. We're all thinking of you. We're all very proud of you. So moving right along into what we like to do every Friday night, we're going to get into our 3 storylines for the weekend. Since Coach is absent, he has sent me his information, and hang on a second.
Oh,
I think that's what I'm supposed to have there.
that's what I was going to dress as for Halloween. I was going to put my golf hat on and my golf shirt on.
I figured Coach wasn't here, so I needed to find I printed out the Srixon logo just to have some fun with it.
That's wonderful.
But Coach's 3 storylines all revolve around his family for this evening. He was privileged to have the honor to caddy for his son during a mini tour event. His other son was able to coach his first college football game. And he is tonight surrounded by his family, friends, everybody at his ceremony for his Hall of Fame induction. So this is a faith, family, and football podcast, and Coach represents all 3 of those things. And we're just real proud of him. And it's been a privilege to work with him and know him.
And I'll just say this, Keith. There is nobody that could out-scheme and out-maneuver with what he had talent-wise. And he could have made more money all those years. He always taught in the public schools. And he was a son of a gun to go against because he'd run the ball. When you could stop the run, throw it right over your head. Great play caller. Unbelievable. And it's well-deserved that he's in there. It took too long for him to get into that Hall of Fame, but we'll go into that later. So,
all right. Well, Brian, you want to give your 3 things, or you want me to go next?
You go ahead.
Okay.
I'm still trying to read my notes.
My 3 things on this are going to be, number 1, what Notre Dame team will show up this weekend? This will be 8 games in a row, including a round-trip travel itinerary to Ireland and back. 8 games in a row with no break is our 4th primetime game in a row. And, Notre Dame, we have midterm papers coming up soon. And unlike some schools in the Florida Panhandle, we can't just write our name on the exam in the paper and let it go. So we actually have to do the work. And, these guys aren't just majoring in sports journalism or just sports in general. They are pre-med, pre-law. These guys are really working hard. So it's been a huge workload for them. And you could tell when they came out for that Louisville game, they just looked like they needed a nap. And that's the way they played. So we'll see what Notre Dame team, hopefully they got some time off, got to rest up. And it's a big momentum game for us at home with Southern Cal. I'll get into that a little later. The Major League Baseball playoffs. We have the Wild Card League Championship going on right now. All kinds of fun people chatter going back and forth about the new playoff system. I've had a lot of fun with it with some people recently, but I mentioned it on Monday that the wild card teams were hot all last weekend, and they continue to show that. Now you have the top 4 teams in all of baseball are no longer in the playoffs, and you've got Philly and
1-9, Keith. 1-9 was their record. And I know you disagree
Philly
with me
came
on
in
this.
and destroyed the Braves, and Arizona went in hot against the Dodgers. You got the Rangers and the Astros, and you've got the Diamondbacks and the Phillies. So it should be a lot of fun to watch that.
Philly's going to be a drunk city for about the next 2 weeks between the Eagles and the Phillies. So pretty crazy.
Absolutely. Then you got my other thing, which is a little off the radar, but this weekend we have the quarterfinals of the Rugby World Cup. It's over in France right now, and my storyline on that is Fiji. They are in the quarterfinals for the 3rd time ever in the tournament's history, And as a little fun note, during the group stages, they were able to beat Australia for the first time in 69 years. So all good luck to Fiji. They're playing England Sunday morning at 10 o'clock in the morning. It'll be on Peacock, so I'll be tuning in for that. But that's my three things. Brian, why don't you go next?
Keath, I want to thank you for teaching me about London via text this week because my Baltimore Ravens are there. But my three things, number one came up with Yahoo Sports' Ross Dellinger, who's a great writer and probably on top of things from a perspective of conference realignment. He talked about the 72 hours that Oregon and Washington were accepted into the Big Ten. It's a great article. If you haven't read it, you really need to read it. The guy that has been on the forefront is Big Ten Information and something else on Twitter. All you have to do is find me on Twitter or find Unblocked Podcast. He's been right way more than he's been wrong. The SEC wants Clemson and North Carolina, is what he said. The Big Ten now, Keath, Bob. Glad to see Bob in the podcast.
Bob has made an appearance. He was outside getting a little frisky with the neighbor's dog, so I had to go bring him back in.
Bob probably needs to hear this part. The Big Ten, under Kevin Warren, has vetted Miami, FSU, Clemson, Virginia, UNC, and Notre Dame. But there's two names that nobody knew, Pitt and Arizona. So Danielle knows kind of about the conference realignment. I'm not going to put her on the spot. But the second thing was Matt Rule from Nebraska. He gave a speech before last Saturday's game, and I was ready to run through a wall for the guy. Nebraska is going to be better. And honestly, if you're going to beat up on them this year, you can ask Dave Aranda how hard it is to win at Baylor. And I'm just telling you, they're building a giant, Keath. They probably have the best fan base in the country. Do you agree or disagree? They show up for all these games and get their tails kicked.
You talking about Big Red in Nebraska?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I would go just to put corn on my hands and go crazy. So a young man who played there named Jordan Westerkamp back in the day, he went to my high school. His older cousin, her and I went to start kindergarten together. So I followed Nebraska for a little while, mainly because of that. That was with, who was the coach back then? An old LSU coach, Bo Pelini.
Bo Pelini, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he made a recording.
He ended up going to Nebraska over Notre Dame. I don't get it, but
he made a recording, and now he's, I think, back at Youngstown State. But that's neither here nor there. We need a Nebraska trip though. That's one place I've never been. John Lieber always tells me he's going to take me, but and yet. My last thing is the Steve Smith feud last night with Jerry Jeudy. I don't know if either one of you followed that. It was pretty funny. Steve Smith tried talking to him pregame, and Jerry Jeudy said something that I'm not going to repeat on air. Steve Smith did repeat it on air, a word that was similar. And Steve Smith called him a jag, just another guy. I think Jerry Jeudy finished with 3 catches for 14 yards. And
that's exactly what it was.
So he was just another guy. And this is not Steve Smith calling him out. It's several Broncos. You look at Stink, Mark Schlereth, and so many Broncos have just called out Jerry Jeudy and his effort and his just everything, leadership quality. And I think there are 9 receivers that were drafted after him. And I think he was picked, Keath, maybe 10th or 12th in the draft. I don't know. I'd have to look at that. But if I'm wrong, I'll send out a tweet and say I'm wrong. But
he was a first-round pick, I remember for sure.
He was a first round, somewhere between 12 and 15, and he's acting like a child. He's retweeting, like he's right, and then you go out and catch three catches for 14 yards, and one of them was for 12 yards. So the other 2 were for a yard apiece. You're just another guy until you prove you aren't. And to challenge Steve Smith, who's going to be a Hall of Famer, there's no doubt, and his emotions got to him. I mean, but if go on Twitter, look at what he said. It was a very interesting back and forth, and so that's my 3 things. Danielle, what do you got?
Well, first of all, I don't live in the Florida Panhandle. I live in the Florida Big Bend. You have to look
well, there's a second eye roll. I've got the over 4.5, so I'm hoping it happens.
But yeah, no, my three things are definitely, obviously, Florida State tomorrow. Trying to go 6-0, home game at noon against Syracuse. Um, we've gotten a lot of the hard work on our schedule out of the way initially. We still have some games coming up, of course, with rivalries because we have two rivals, obviously, Miami and UF. And so that obviously is, my thing. But also Miami and North Carolina. North Carolina, Louisville, and Florida State all undefeated in the ACC. And if people are aware, ACC is rid of divisions this year. So there's, it's going to be some rules in place if that continues. Miami, obviously, coming off of, how do I describe what they did? But they did it. So yeah, you didn't take a knee. So they're convinced, a lot of their fan base is convinced they're going to find a way to beat UNC at UNC. I'm curious to see how that happens. Outside of that, really nothing. Being honest, those would be my two. Unless UF can pull off some miracle tomorrow against South Carolina, which would be, yeah.
Well, we'll go into that.
Who would have thought you'd be saying those words?
Oh, yeah. And if you want some more Mario Cristobal talk, just go back to our past couple episodes. 40 plus 40 plus 40 is 2 minutes, right, Keith?
Exactly. Coach had a great breakdown of that one.
It's not Common Core math. It's math I learned in Crestline, Ohio. So.
Yep. All right. Well, we'll move on. We have had some listener questions. And again, if you have any reactions, or you see something on the media, or you see us post something, just hit us up. Like I said, Twitter is probably the most active spot for all three of us. Just hit us up on there. We'll be happy to take your questions and answer them live on the pod. But we do have a couple. So Brian, why don't you tell us what we got?
Our first one came from Bill, who is Bill Atchison. He's a Georgia fan. And he responded to Rocky Alt on Wednesday night about Georgia's recruiting budget versus Kentucky and Stoops calling out Georgia. And it kind of reminds me, Danielle, probably too young to remember Fantasy Island, but there was a short little guy, and he used to go, the plane, the plane, the plane. And so Bill told me the plane is the reason that Georgia spends more in recruiting and NIL and everything. And but Mark Stoops, he kind of doubled down, and then he actually kind of backed off. So Keith, have you followed this situation at all?
I have a little bit. And first of all, TV show is Fantasy Island.
Fantasy Island. What did I call it?
Come on.
What did I call it?
I think you just called it fantasy, but yeah,
okay.
Fantasy Island.
I can't believe
you
know it. Show. You're so much younger. So.
Oh, come on now. That was
the plane.
That was
fantastic. That was a great show.
And the character's name was Tattoo. So let's be very clear here.
Well,
yes.
Well, yeah, you'd know that. Show.
But no, and look, I'm never going to claim to be an expert and pay too much attention to what goes on. I judge a lot of this what I see from what I read from multiple sources and what I see. And look, it's a fact. It's Georgia versus Kentucky. And to exactly what Mark Stoops said, he was on a radio show. Fans have the right to complain. I give it to them. I just encourage them to donate more because that's what those dudes are doing. I can promise you. Georgia, they bought some pretty good players, and you're allowed to these days. We could use some help. Now, bought players, do you have a top program that can offer them? It's a little bit of a in-between thing with NIL. But he also walked it back a little and corrected himself recently and saying, well, basically one person was questioning me and the program and getting over the hump, he explained. I really simply should have said, hey, dude, I've gotten over a lot of humps, but this is not a hump. This is Mount Everest, which he's got a point. And what this all comes down to is everyone thought college players should get some kind of payment and be able to make money. But Pandora's box is open. It's not getting closed anytime soon. And all the advantages that these top programs have, not necessarily school size, but these top programs to begin with, all the advantages they already had over other schools are, and everyone was questioned about, to begin with, it's now a reality. NIL is not necessarily a disaster. The implementation is. And you got schools like Georgia who can go do things like this. You got schools like Alabama. You got a lot of schools around the country. Look at Southern California. Kentucky football can't keep up with that. Kentucky basketball has a great history of skirting the line between fair, legal, probation, violation. And honestly, if you're not doing that in football now as well, and using all this money and all these resources to your advantage, you're gonna fall behind. So he's got a point that now he has built a Kentucky name for itself. Kentucky has had some good teams, but they're never going to be the University of Georgia, the University of Alabama, the Ohio State, Michigan. I mean, even Notre Dame can't compete in NIL with that because we have other issues holding us back. We have the money, we can give them the money, we can't get them through the front door because of the academic restraints. But it's where we are now, and most of the people have seen seen the movie Moneyball, and Billy Beane simply said, "You adapt or you die," and that just goes back even older than that to Darwin in his paper Origin of the Species.
Darwin.
His exact quote was, "It is not the strongest of the species that survives, but the most adaptable." So, Kentucky, what are you going to do about it? And he's got a point. It's all in the booster's hands. If he can get some money in there and you could sway that one player to come, and the players will build on themselves. You look at Notre Dame is pulled in Lloyd Carr's grandson, Michigan born, Michigan raised. Put a Notre Dame hat on Lloyd Carr when he signed, and he is now out there recruiting kids to come to Notre Dame because that's what they do now. So
come on, Danielle, we need an eye roll.
No, I'm not. I actually have a lot of good points to make. I mean, if you look at Florida State's recruiting class over the summer, and I'm not talking about. I don't get into that kind of stuff. I deal with signed, sealed, and delivered. I want to deal with a letter of intent. But Florida State has managed to snag the top 5 players out of the state of Georgia. They've started recruiting there harder. They've also done very well with the transfer portal and overall in their recruiting class because the NIL picked up. So it is one of those things. And Florida, at the same time, we passed the law, to loosen restrictions so we would be able to compete with other states. Because part of the problem was you have other states with more restrictions than others, and so Florida got rid of ours. And now, Florida State has kind of taken off to the races with NIL. Winning helps. I'm not gonna lie. Winning helps. Win games. But yeah, I would have to say Florida State's, like you said, adapt or die. The Florida State is absolutely conquering this level right now to the point where we started out the beginning of the year with Ruiz promising the sun, moon, and stars on recruiting down at Miami and a new stadium and this and that. And then Florida State kind of took the lead. And like I said, it does help when you win games. So, which we are.
No, Danielle's got great points. And you look at, she made an excellent point, is how they're utilizing Georgia athletes. I'm sure Georgia now having the money, the notoriety, and the fame. They're looking to recruit athletes from all over the country. But now you're overlooking your local talent. And if you can make that, now it's just, can you make them a better offer? Of course, Dan perfectly said, winning helps. But if you can make them a better offer now and give them the playing time, especially with NIL or with the transfer portal. You know who didn't believe in the transfer portal? Dabo. And look what they're doing. He is a perfect example. It's adapt or die, and he is choosing not to adapt, or very slowly to adapt, trying to see what really happens.
He's gonna change his theory on this offseason, I promise.
Oh, absolutely, he will now, because he saw firsthand.
Yeah.
He thought he was going to believe in everything he said was going to turn gold, but
you can do both. I think that's where a lot of people got lost. I watched UF and I watched Clemson just talk about recruiting, about the freshmen, about who's coming in, and ignore the transfer portal. Florida State used the transfer portal to, we've been through years and years of problems to fill those needed gaps, and then started winning games. And then guess what follows after that? Recruiting. So I think it was one of those things. I don't know. I think you can't have an all or nothing mentality with this. You probably have to deal with both.
The good news though is there's a collective out there, and I think all three of the teams we root for are part of that collective. And it's just going to keep growing.
Absolutely.
And the NCAA is so far behind. And
Always.
do you guys want to close that out before I transition? Whenever I wrote these questions down, I never really realized how great they transitioned to each other. But do you guys have anything else?
What's the next one?
The next one is Jerry Tarkanian said, the NCAA is so mad at Kentucky it is going to put Cleveland State on probation. So the ruling came down for Kansas basketball, who had 5 level 1 violations. It was an FBI violation. It was an FBI raid. There were actual people in jail through the Adidas money that was laundered, or through Adidas shoes or whatever. There are people that are paying with careers right now. And the NCAA came out to Kansas, and I'll tell you, whenever I read it, and Pat Forty and Dan Wetzel and, like I said, Ross Dellinger, those guys are on the forefront. They just laughed as part of their podcast. They're like, the NCAA is a paper tiger. I mean, eventually they're going to be gone because football's going to tell them it's been fun, but not really for the last 72 years or whatever it is. But, I mean, essentially, Bill Self gets a 3-game suspension, I think, out of 5 level 1 violations. I'm not going to say a coach in the North, but they're pushing to give him 4 games for a cheeseburger. I could probably move the camera a little bit to kind of give you a hint who it is. But, I mean, there are people in jail for this. And Bill Self and the guy from LSU, Wade, whatever his name is, we need money. It's on tape. And neither one of them were punished. So the NCAA hopefully will go away sooner rather than later. I've got ideas who I want as the next football commissioner, because basketball can't split off for about 11 years because the NCAA stones the NCAA basketball tournament. So I understand that. But football, at some point, you've got Tony Petitti, you've got Greg Sankey leading the way, and it's going to be somebody. And I could probably name 5 guys that I've heard that they want to lead college football going forward. But I'm not going to do it at this point until somebody tells me you can say it on air. But that's, and then my last question, that last question came from Brent from Virginia. My last question comes from Tom from Ohio, Keith. Who are 2 teams in college football that could possibly surprise you in any conference? And then who are 2 teams in the NFL who could surprise you in any conference?
So I like this question, and I'm going to look at it from a little different point of view from college. 2 teams that could really, really surprise me in these upcoming weeks are Michigan and Ohio State. Because if either of those teams screw up bad enough to make it where the time when they meet up does not decide who's going to probably make the playoffs and go to the Big Ten championship, then it's a shock. I mean, Penn State's going to give them both a challenge, but they're both better than Penn State. And Ohio State, I got that in my notes for coming up later, plays Penn State next. We'll see what happens, but if Michigan and Ohio State somehow screw up where one of them is not in the Big Ten championship and not in the playoff, that would be the biggest surprise of the season. Going into the NFL, the surprises are, I'm just going to say what I've seen so far, not who can, because I think the NFL, if you want to know who can, I think the Bears could maybe surprise people and win more than 5 games. That's all I'm hoping for. But the biggest surprise for me is the Broncos. I mean, just bravo, Russell Wilson, bravo. I mean, this is a epic performance you're putting on there.
It's not just him. It's Sean with the play chart. It's Jerry Jeudy calling out Steve Smith on the sidelines. I mean, calling him I'm not going to say the word, but I mean.
But the beautiful thing here is they're both tied up for so much money. And you do have a new owner who hired Sean Payton, did not bring in Russell Wilson with the Walton family. But Sean Payton's supposed to be this quarterback whisperer. He came in and tried to discipline Russell Wilson, and now he just, I mean, it's comical watching what's going on there.
The thing in the NFL, though, is they really this year are putting the fun and dysfunctional. Absolutely. And it's not just one team. It's multiple teams, and it changes every week. So,
and now I think the surprise, and this is one that I think could surprise some people, is the Seattle Seahawks. Didn't look good week 1. Went to Detroit and beat Detroit at Detroit. Detroit's only loss on the season.
And a good team.
Detroit will more than likely win the NFC North. But now they're looking at 3 in a row. They're playing Cincinnati this weekend. I think they've got a more than good chance to beat Cincinnati. And then that's 4 wins in a row. Their only real competition in their division is going to be the 49ers. And we'll get into NFL later, but that's fine. You're going to just admit the 49ers are a significantly better football team than 99% of the teams in the NFL. But I think Seattle, they got a legitimate chance of making a good run at that wild card spot because at least, if not. So I think Seattle's going to surprise people. People thought there'd be a Geno Smith fallout this year. He's played very well, recouped significantly after that week 1 loss. And it's the NFC West. It's
sometimes a change of scenery does a quarterback so well. You look at Alex Smith and, getting a new coach in San Francisco and being with Andy Reid. And just sometimes, you're cursed if you get drafted early. So just doesn't work.
Brian, Danielle, you got 2 teams either way that could surprise you?
No, not on NFL.
I'm gonna
college. Do I have to admit Louisville has kind of surprised everybody? I guess.
Yeah.
I guess I get to admit that one. Other than that, I mean, I can only really speak pretty much to the ACC, which we're stuck in for now. I think Duke surprised everybody, obviously earlier this year, and Florida State has them coming up next here in Tallahassee. So that's going to be a huge, huge, huge game. And then, we also have to go on the road after that, to Pitt and Wake Forest. Wake Forest, we still have bad vibes from the Hartman days, but that's beside the point.
I'm giving you the Danielle eyes right now.
Oh, and Brian, your eye roll count. Here's one for me when she mentioned Louisville.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I mean, you can't. They're 6-0.
I get
it. Jeff Brom's done a great job. There's no doubt he came in late too, so he didn't even benefit from the transfer portal. He's really kind of rallied the troops.
From the ACC perspective, people are surprised that they're 6-0.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. I think nationally as well. So
yeah, but they've got Pitt, which is 1-4. So it's gonna, likely, and they're a game ahead. So it depends if you look at the ACC standings. Now, I mean, because those things are really counting in the ACC right now. Like I said, divisions are gone. And whoever plays for the championship game, if you have a 3-way tie, that's going to get interesting. So
I think my biggest surprise, and I'll just stick with college football because that's where we're at, is Oklahoma. And I honestly think Brett Venables could possibly run the table and ruin somebody's chance with a 1-loss to get in. So that's just my opinion. I think that's the missing thing from Dabo. Clemson has not been the same since Brett left, and I think he's done a great job. I think they're a ball control team, but their defense is pretty awesome. So shut down
That
a
also
high-powered.
calls on Dabo not using the portal though, so we're gonna have to address that as well.
Yeah.
And
But I mean, I'd agree. Louisville's a surprise team. Jeff Brown has done a wonderful job, but there's going to be somebody that like kind of spoils it for somebody late. That always happens. That 4, 5, 6, and 7 going into the last week of the season, there's always a shakeup all the way back to the BCS and Roy Kramer's days.
well, Louisville will be on the CW network tomorrow, so y'all can watch them.
Well, yeah, I was going to talk about that. Your favorite network, the CW. So. Go ahead, Keith. Onward.
Oh, yeah, no, hey, CW's been great. Like, there's extra golf on, there's extra football. Good for everybody there. So, but yeah, no, look, I said it before last week. Louisville can move the ball very well. They can put up a ton of yards, put up a ton of points, and Notre Dame was just flat that game to begin with, and Louisville just took it to us. We did everything we could just to keep standing up, and they just kept coming. But all right, well, that'll wrap up listener questions. We're going to go real quick into it's a kind of an off week in college football right now. A lot of teams are entering the byes, and we had a great weekend last weekend. It's going to start getting really good next weekend, especially. So we'll get into a little college football talk right now, and I'll start off with reviewing the Big 10 and Big 12 and Notre Dame coming up. Not too much going on. The Big 12, the highlight is going to be Rock Chalk Jayhawk and the Cowboys of Oklahoma State. Kansas trying to keep that one-loss record intact. Outside of that, it's got to be regular. Not much going on. In the Big 10, Michigan is at home to Indiana. Indiana's best player ever now plays for Washington. But going forward, the thing to look at is you got Ohio State, Purdue, and Penn State playing UMass. Now, why are those games important? Because are you going to overlook what's happening next week, which is Penn State and Ohio State will be playing each other? For all you Big Ten truest, you disgusting people who like Big Ten football, do I have the game for you? I want you all to get comfy on the couch, get you a bottle of Jameson, get you whatever you need to make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside, because it is Iowa, Wisconsin. You know what? Skip it all. Get the heavy beer out. Get some Strolls. Get some Schlitz. Put a bunch of meat on the grill. This is Big Ten football. Just big, beefy white boys just pushing and shoving each other and scoring a total of 22 points.
Keith, will you do me a favor? Or Boone's Farm. But
Absolutely.
Keith, will you do me a favor and figure out what he has to average after this week? Because in his contract, he's supposed to average 25 points. And
well, I mean, this is going to be.
Not
this
sure
has,
he's there.
This has,
I think he's only eclipsed it one time. So
this has 15 to 12 written all over it, and some disgusting.
This could make it mathematically impossible for Brian Ferentz to keep his job at Iowa.
Yeah,
it'll
be exciting. Look, and I'm not going to lie, I'm from the Midwest. I love defensive football. I love that stuff. I just don't like sloppy offensive football. So I'll watch the game. I'll probably cry a little bit when they wave at the Children's Hospital. And
that's the greatest tradition in sports. But by Monday, if you can just figure out, like, mathematically how many points he has to average to get to 25. I can do that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's a Big Ten dream come true right there.
Slobber knocker is what my coach used to say. He used to say it's a real slobber knocker. They're going to run the sprinklers on you, and it's only 17 degrees when we played Ontario, Ohio.
It's in Wisconsin too, and the weather. I know at least in Chicago it's not supposed to be good this weekend, so we'll see what happens up there.
I did read Notre Dame. The rain's stopping about an hour before the game, so.
We'll get into that. Southern Cal coming to Notre Dame. And Notre Dame is a 2.5 to 3 point favorite, depending where you're getting it. One of the podcasts was saying today, because they were about a 4 point favorite going to Louisville, is that in college football over the last 3 years, the winning percentage of teams that are favored only by 2 to 3 points is surprisingly less than a third. It is shocking. So USC's coming in. Notre Dame needs a bounce back game big time. Caleb Williams, this is a huge game in Chicago right now because Bears are on the Caleb Williams watch, mainly because we're looking to have Carolina's first pick as well, as in addition to ours. So odds are we're going to be picking somewhere near the top, and it's a decision year for Justin Fields. Everyone's paying attention because Chicago and Notre Dame go hand in hand. It's going to be a drawn-out game. If Notre Dame's offensive line can show up and give Sam a little protection there, it's going to be Notre Dame could put up 40 on this defense easily. Can Notre Dame contain Caleb Williams enough? You're not going to stop him at all. You're going to hope you can keep him to under 35 points, and you're going to need several turnovers to do that. And you mentioned the weather, too. It's been kind of comical. You can find it on the Twitter. USC has been practicing with their guys catching punts while a coach
pathetic.
is running around with a squirt gun and like a tank on his back, like trying to spray water at them.
That might be the most pathetic thing I've seen. And I want Danielle's opinion as a meteorologist because she is also a meteorologist on that one.
Y'all want us to come to the Big Ten? I'm studying 83 tomorrow. I mean,
no. Did you see the clip where they were?
I have not. Oh
my gosh! I'm gonna post it. They had.
Oh, it's fantastic! It's guys got like a superintendent watering can on his back and just going around with a little spray hose.
You will probably like it better than Jeremy Ireland's tweet. Miami fans taking a selfie from the last time they were relevant. You know Jeremy, right?
Danielle, he's basically wearing like what a landscaper would, spraying chemicals on the grass and all that, or on the flower beds, except it's full of water. And he's trying to run side to side, like spraying water on these guys.
Somebody said bring a fire hose.
Need this. Yeah, seriously, because if you have a tropical storm here, if we join, you have a tropical storm here, and
I'm going to tag you on the Unblocked podcast here in a minute. So go ahead.
Seriously, you're not going to get away from it.
No, but that's all. That's about all I got right now, and we'll go next up. Coach is here. Sorry, got to get the hat back on. Coach, since he is so good at picking games, has sent in his picks, and if they're bad this week, it's definitely my fault, not his. So we're just going to get that clear. He's got Georgia over Vanderbilt, Tennessee over Texas A&M, South Carolina over Florida, LSU over Auburn, Alabama over Arkansas, and Kentucky over Mizzou. He wants to point out all these games are home games except for the Georgia at Vanderbilt. He also would like to point out big game on Tuesday night at South Alabama, I believe.
I'll be there
in Mobile. We got South is at home to Southern Miss, so it should be a great game. Everyone should get out there. I'm going to try to make it myself.
I'll be there, Keith. Come out to the beer garden. That's where I'll be. And I will wear red whenever I go to the South Alabama game. I think I said something about him never wearing red when I watched the Jags. Frank Gore Jr., Danielle, you probably know his dad, Frank Gore Sr. He'll be the running back for Southern Miss. And he played against you guys earlier this season, but he was hurt, so he didn't get to play. Yeah. But so, Keith, are we on to the Pac-12?
On to you for the Pac-12 and the ACC. Right.
We've got Stanford, Colorado should be kicking off, I think, in about 20-some minutes. Travis Hunter is back. He's probably the most exciting guy to watch in college football. But he's on a snap.
I'm kidding.
Brian's eye roll was under 1, so you just broke that. But he's back, but he's on a snap count. But I think he's honestly the most interesting guy coming back. He's the best athlete I've seen in high school. He's the best athlete I've seen in college. I thought Deion played him too much in the first couple games, but the injury wasn't his fault. It was kind of a cheap shot. I thought what he did was very, very awesome with the kid that hit him. But it might be a tough night for the Cardinals, all I'm saying. Cal, Utah still could find a way into the top of the conference if they get some of those injuries back. Kyle Whittingham's a great coach, and he's going to be offered probably Michigan State and some other jobs after the season. So finish that one. I can't really see. So Oregon, Washington. That's a big battle of quarterbacks. It's 2:30 p.m. game, Central Standard Time. Bo Nix, Michael Penix. In the Pac-12, I know Keath said that it was kind of boring games, but the Pac-12, it's kind of a separation weekend for them. There's a lot of good ones. Arizona, Washington State, favorite time of the year is when you get people separating themselves. So UCLA, Oregon State, Timmy B and Spencer Tillman have the call from Corvallis. And they had a great game the other night. What I want to ask Keath and Danielle is, have you ever been to Corvallis?
Never been to the home of the Beavers. As much as I'd like to go, you could fly into Portland, and it's
there's a couple different options.
Yeah, Portland, and then you hit Corvallis, hit Eugene, bring the golf clubs. You go right down to Bandon Dunes. Oregon is a beautiful state. Why not?
Well, the Squirrels Tavern is the restaurant that I went to whenever I was in Corvallis. Greg Little's the owner, and I'll tell you, they have the greatest burger. It's called the Squirrel Burger, and I tweeted Spencer and Timmy B about it. It's got Danielle. You tell me if you'd like this. I don't know if you'd like the burger, but it's got Swiss and cheddar cheese. It's not squirrel. It's actually ground beef.
Okay, that's what I was about to say. Don't look at me like
no. It's just called the Squirrel Burger. Everything out there has some kind of weird name, but it's got fried ham and fried egg on it. But it was probably in my top 7 burgers. And then there's also a place called the Downward Dog Cafe. It's like, Keath, we're going to go out there someday whenever they get into a conference. It's 1st Street, 2nd Street campus. And I hope some conference picks them up, whether it's a Big 12 or ACC, when everything shakes out. Great people out there. But that's it. That's literally it. And
another fun fact about Oregon is that you could also stop in a fun town called McMinnville, Oregon, which is the current home of the Spruce Moose Museum, the infamous airplane.
Little did I know.
You could check that out. There's more information for you about Oregon you didn't need.
I spent 19 days in Bend, Oregon one time, and I'll never visit Bend, Oregon again. But there's a lot of great places and great people out there. There's great people and great places everywhere. So are we ready to move on to the ACC, though?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. One thing really quick, since you're bringing up the Pac-12, I was just messing with y'all for giving me a hard time because Travis Hunter is always, referenced with Florida State. I'm glad he's back. I thought that was a cheap shot. I was really upset about it. I'm glad he's back. And as a Seminole fan, Deion's part of our legacy. I'm proud of him and what he's doing. Like I said on a past show, Mike Norvell is where he needs to be and Deion's where he needs to be, and they're both doing phenomenal. Yeah. So I'm just giving y'all a hard time because I can't.
No, and we're okay with that. I apologize most Mondays for the comments that I made the previous week, Danielle. That's what you have to understand. And the predictions, too. But I have predicted Notre Dame to beat USC because I'm like Heather Dinish from ESPN, friend of mine. And I do not think – Huh?
I can't – y'all know how I feel about Notre Dame. Sorry, Keith.
Well,
I just can't –
I'm just telling you. Until USC's defense stops somebody, I don't think they're in the top 4. So, but we've got Wake, Virginia Tech, 3-2 versus 2-4. Mickey Neer, my old boss, he was a Wake championship guy. Louisville Pitt on CW Sports.
I told
Danielle, y'all. You want to talk about ruining Florida State's ratings? Put them on CW behind. Keith, what are the shows on there? Dawson's Creek, Supernatural. What else? I mean, what are you going to follow it up with?
Smallville. I'm sure there's, once they took Felicity off, I stopped watching.
I really don't think I've got that on YouTube TV. And I've never tried, though. But if they ever put Florida State or Clemson on CW, I think that's the start of the whole realignment.
Yeah.
Never forget,
Because
they are also the home of Live Golf.
there you go.
They,
But
no, the NCAA tried to sell that to us.
isn't it ending though, Keith? Isn't that over? Or?
It's not over. It's merging. I'll have on in my On Paper with Keath podcast. I'll be digging into it little by little. There's right now they made an announcement that the tours are merging. What exactly that means, there's very loose wording about it. What it means for the players, what it means for the tours. I don't think the tours are going to stop what they're doing respectively, in my opinion. But again, there's a lot to digest in there, a lot to get into, and also the new exciting news with the Tiger Woods, Rory McIlroy venture there.
We're going to talk about that on Monday, I think, because I've had a lot of questions about that for you that have come through Facebook, actually. So
it should be an interesting venture. But again, we're all waiting for a little more information. Just, they gave us what the plan was, but they didn't tell us exactly quite how the sausage is made, and we'll figure that out little by little.
Okay, the Wolfpack play Duke. Riley Leonard has a high ankle sprain. I heard he's a game time decision. We spent the day with David Morris over at Quarterback Country, coach from home, and I went over there and got this great hat. David could not be a better person, father, family, Christian, son, everything. But
game of the week.
That's going to be game. Are you predicting
for the ACC?
The Wolfpack or Duke? Or are you predicting Miami, North
I'm not
Carolina?
talking about that. I'm talking about Miami and UNC. I thought that's
okay. Well,
I'm sorry.
No. If I had a choice to take Mac Brown over Mario Cristobal at this point in my career as a 32-year-old guy and watch both of their body of work, I'm taking Mac Brown, Keith, every day that ends in Y. Danielle, go ahead.
I would be hard pressed to say. I think everybody has been waiting. I think because here's the thing: as a Florida State fan, I can tell you right now, Miami comes with a lot of hype every year. This year being no exception. They just can't seem to. It's one of these deals, and it's with the because they've actually I think I haven't compared them in UF. Florida State's been all in on the transfer portal. Miami kind of. UF has been kind of like with the Dabo mentality of, hey, the new class coming in. But Miami Miami is got a really good team. I think the thing with that is coaching. I mean, there is no way to explain what you saw last weekend. That comes down to coaching. And I was really mad that when I watched Cristobal in that press conference after, blame that kid. I mean, you can't. I mean, you put him in that position and he shouldn't have been. So yeah, but at the same time, I think everybody, because of the hype and because of everything we know about Miami, we're kind of looking over our shoulder for them to make a big moment. And I think, listening to some of their fans this week, they think that this is their chance to make a big moment. But Mac Brown is Mac Brown. I mean, that's a given. So I'm kind of with you.
And he's got they both have great quarterbacks, don't get me wrong, but It probably will come down to a guy that Keith and I know pretty well, Gene Chizik, the defensive coordinator.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Yeah,
whether he can stop Vance Lake. So,
but here's the thing.
I always get his name wrong, Keith.
You always do. It's
Van Dyke. Van Dyke. Yeah.
Here's the thing. Well, we call him Van Spike because of a couple of years ago here, but. Here's the thing about this game. North Carolina doesn't play Louisville. Neither Florida State doesn't play either. So if all went out, and that's like a high speculation because the odds of that happening with all three are, slim to none. But people have been worried about that. What happens with the ACC championship. So there you go. So if Miami pulls off a win, I'm not ever going to cheer for them. So I'm going to leave it alone.
Well, that'll about wrap it up for our college football chat. And then we'll go into a little bit of NFL stuff going on. Main points are you've got the Eagles and the 49ers are red hot, looking like the best teams in football. Respectively, Eagles go to the Jets and the 49ers go to the Browns. There's both teams, in my opinion, are going to stay dominant, stay undefeated, and both make a very significant push to both make it back to the Super Bowl. Does anything else in the NFL really pique your interest, Danielle, Brian?
No, not much. I mean,
Okay.
I'm not much. I mean, just
well, for me, I mean, for me, I'll just tell you, we're in London this week, and we play the Titans, and I've got a lot of friends within the Titans organization, both players, coaches, and staff. So it'll be interesting.
London is Brian and I were chatting earlier this week. They are playing at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Tottenham Hotspur is my club, has been since 1997. And it's a great experience if you can ever get the chance to go see your team play there, or just go to London and go to an NFL game and catch a couple Premier League or Championship or any kind of local football over there. Highly recommend it. It's a whole new experience. You will have a whole new appreciation for the game. It's all around a great time, and call me because I'll probably just go with you anyway. I love it.
And Danielle, just in case you want to gamble, because I don't gamble on the Ravens or anybody related to me, but in case you want to gamble, Keath told me that the first team that gets there typically wins.
Take the team that's been there the longest.
The Ravens were there much earlier than the Titans got there.
Every team that travels late in the week has never been successful. They try to adjust their schedule and try to home comfort train. It don't work that way.
But we're not offering gambling advice. We're just three misfits that do not gamble.
And going with what I was talking about earlier, here's a little storyline to keep an eye on. You got the Eagles at the Jets. Things don't look too good for the Jets in this game. Let's just be honest. The Bears are hosting the Vikings on the lakefront this weekend. Justin Fields has put up 2 phenomenal games in these last 2 weeks. Granted, the team as a whole has not gelled. They have not played well. They still have a lot to prove. However, Justin Fields and DJ Moore have proven a very powerful connection. They've kind of worked that, situation out. And Justin Fields is looking like a decent quarterback, someone you might want to pay. Now, both the Bears and Vikings have 1 win on the season. Should the Vikings go and lose to the Bears, the Vikings are also without Jefferson as the receiver, you bring up a lot of questions with Kirk Cousins. He has a complete no-trade clause. Before he went to the Vikings, the Jets were in for him heavy. Rumor is the Jets are really still looking to make a push for this thing. And if the Vikings go now to 1-5, 1-6, are they trying to get in the Caleb Williams contest?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about. Are they going to try and
find something? So it's just a little underlying storyline to keep an eye on. If the Jets and the Vikings both lose, do the Jets start to make some offers before this trade deadline? And do the Vikings seriously consider trading Kirk Cousins? Because he is in a last year of his contract. There's a lot going on. And do the Vikings just throw in the towel and call it a day? Now they'll be dead last in the division. Bears, only 1 game behind the Bears and the Packers, who will each have only 2 wins, but it looks like Detroit's to take. So just a fun storyline to keep an eye on, because it will be his choice to completely waive his no trade clause.
All right. Are we done, Keath? Can I ask one
That's
question?
All I got.
Both
so
of you?
Just trying to give everyone something to keep interested in. So we'll be back on Monday. We will have guests next week. Go ahead, Brian.
hold on one second. Keith, where are you watching your games? Notre Dame and the Bears. And what are you having to drink while you watch them?
Well, let's see. Notre Dame is at 6:30 tomorrow, so I'll probably be watching at home because 4 6:30 p.m. games in a row means 4
Worn you out?
afternoon naps in a
Are you
row.
worn out?
Oh, I'll be up early watching some stupid sport at Rugby World Cup starts at 10. I'll probably be up and gone to the grocery store by I would go to the grocery store, spend $200 and be home by 6:45 in the morning and go for a run then. Yeah, either way, I'll be at home watching probably both of those. I've got a great little dodgy app that is legal in some countries that gets me access to a lot of sports programming. And so I'll be probably just hanging out at home. I'll probably go, it's good weather. I can open up the garage, have some garage beers.
It's going to be 58 degrees this week in Mobile. When are you going to get some of those hoodies back? Do you need to come over here and borrow a couple?
No, I mean, they're all in this house. I just don't have first right to them anymore.
Possession. You lost possession.
Look, see, that's what I told you about. Remember when I said be prepared for the hoodie stealing? Look at her.
This
if
isn't
Danielle
a hoodie
watches
tonight.
Our Monday episode, that's the one thing I addressed.
This is not a hoodie tonight, but I can get you all kinds of Michigan and Ravens hoodies right through a couple closets.
No.
Danielle,
look at that smile.
Danielle, what are your plans for Saturday for the big game?
Doak Campbell Stadium. What other plans did you have in top? My son's going. We missed family. He had to work family weekend, so he came here and we watched the game together because I didn't, family weekend was last weekend and I didn't want to be without him. So tomorrow going there. So.
All right. Well, I'm going to be on a quiet beach somewhere between Seaside, Florida, and Dauphin Island. I'm not sure where, but there's so many good games. There's so many good games this weekend.
Rugby World Cup, 10 o'clock tomorrow, or 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, actually. Forgot about the time change. I think it's 9, either 9 or 10. But then you got that, Bama. It's a multiple TV day. Girlfriend's got a brunch, so it's just going to be me and the Bob. And, it's going to be good times. So
is Bob good luck? I mean, for the season, do you consider him good luck with the Bears and Notre Dame and
Bob
everything
just makes
overseas?
people happy, and that makes me happy. So, it is what it is. I've watched enough sports and been disappointed and overexcited too many times. I just enjoy watching it, and hopefully my team wins and my bets hit. That's about it. And then I can poke the bear a little bit with people on social media. Just give me a good storyline, and I can do that for a little bit and fall asleep with the phone in my hand. So,
it killed me. I didn't hit the Danielle over number. I really thought I was going to hit that with the eye rolls, and I even got one. So
I tried to start that early for you too. So but I didn't want to be, I didn't want to have any, insider betting things going on. I don't want anyone coming after me for that.
The MGM Sportsbook is probably going to be disappointed. Well, no, because they probably won. All the money was on the over. So.
I bet the under, so we're good there. But, okay, let's wrap it up, folks. We're hitting just about an hour, which is a little longer than usual, but still perfect. We'll get on with our Friday nights. And everyone, we want to thank you for joining us on the Unblocked podcast. And always remember, follow, subscribe. Check us out, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you got questions, comments, hit it. Twitter especially. We're always on there. But you can always hit us on there. Or if you got a business, an event you want to promote, hit us up. And you can always email us, unblockedpod@gmail.com. So I'm Keith. For Brian and Danielle, thank you for joining us. We'll be back on Monday.